is Michael Popok. It's After Dark. Do you know where your legal AF is? Listen, speaking of AF, there are so many AF-ing fake rallies and town halls and McDonald's French fry handouts by Donald Trump and MAGA that we can barely keep track of them. But we do on the MeidasTouch network and on Legal AF. We draw a sharp contrast between an out-of-gas, intellectually and morally bankrupt Donald Trump trying to fool the American electorate, try every trick in the book to try to get elected, against the hardworking, earnest, joyful campaign being masterfully run by Kamala Harris. And we do it where? On Legal AF. Take a listen.
But let's dig into it, folks. Let's start off with the various election scams. Donald Trump goes on Fox and Friends. Fox has turned its entire network into a political action committee for Donald Trump. Donald Trump just going on the network now, bragging and gloating how he's going to be meeting with Rupert Murdoch later in the day. It should also be noted, as we see Donald Trump sitting there on the couch, it looks a little bit awkward how he's sitting and just the way he's sitting on. I suppose that's his suit. Other people have speculated otherwise, but let me just show you. This is Donald Trump saying he will be meeting with Rupert Murdoch shortly after that, and he will be telling Rupert Murdoch that he needs to stop having negative ads about Trump and stop saying negative things about Trump. Let's play it.
You know what the event I have now? No. A very big event. I'm going to see Rupert Murdoch.
Okay.
That's a big event. I don't know if he's thrilled that I say it.
Yeah, please tell him we also thank you.
I'm going to tell him something very simple because I can't talk to anybody else about it. Don't put on negative commercials for 21 days. Don't put them. And don't put on their horrible people that come and lie. I'm going to say, Rupert, please do it this way.
Right.
And then we're going to have a victory because I think everyone wants to have
And you're going to Outkick. It's a great channel that we have with Tyrus.
Oh, good.
There you go.
All right, Mr. President, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, man.
All right, we're going to step.
You know, looks like an individual in hospice care with 4 caretakers or nurses by his side. Notice how they tried to change that conversation very, very quickly right there. But he's just saying, look, I'm going to speak to the head of this network to collude in the election. I mean, he's said it. You heard him say it. Also, the hosts at Fox and the writers at Fox are now actually writing Donald Trump's speeches for him. How do we know that? Donald Trump says that they write his speeches for him. Here, play this clip.
You know, we have seen historically a lot of Democrats, they turn to the guys at Saturday Night Live or The Tonight Show. They write all their material. Your material was real funny. Who wrote it? Who helped you with it?
Well, I've had a lot of people helping. A couple of people from Fox, actually. I shouldn't say that, but they wrote some jokes. And for the most part, I didn't like any of them. But
Did you see some highlights? I think you did great.
Go ahead.
Watch.
You know, by the way, he did not do great. He struggled to even read the words that were written for him by Fox writers. Also, I just thought the event was in such poor taste. They were making jokes about him sexually assaulting women as he was sitting next to a cardinal. I did a video about it earlier in the day. Frankly, shame on everybody at that event. I mean, I was watching that and I was just frankly grossed out. I was glad Vice President Kamala Harris in these times did not attend that event. Also, it should be noted when Vice President Kamala Harris agreed to do an interview with Fox, Fox edited the footage. Brett Baer actually edited footage where Donald Trump has always been saying, and we've been showing you this footage on the last Legal AF, where Trump says that he's going to send the United States military on the enemy within, people like Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, and people on the left who don't support him. Donald Trump says that he will use the military against them to round them up, and it's going to be bloody. Okay, folks, that should be incredibly disqualifying. And Vice President Kamala Harris raised that point on Fox. She went into enemy territory. What does Fox do? They edit out Donald Trump saying that, show a different clip and say, oh, Donald Trump didn't say that. The prosecutor that she is, she calls them out and goes, you manipulated the footage. And because she did that, Brett Baer had to admit that he aired the wrong clip. This is Brett Baer admitting that he did the wrong clip. Let's play it.
Harold, I did make a mistake, and I want to say that Mistake. When I called for a soundbite, I was expecting a piece of the enemy from within, from Maria Bartiromo's interview, to be tied to the piece from your town hall, Harris, where you asked the former president about the enemy from within. It just had the piece about the town hall, and just take a listen to what I meant to roll.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
My point is that we asked him the question about that sentence and what he was trying to mean.
Final point, Michael Popok. And by the way, they would not have made that statement had Vice President Kamala Harris not called them out in real time and exposed it. They had to, because she put the pressure on them. You just lied to everybody. And even their own viewers were like, wait a minute, what'd you do?
And Meidas drilled down on it.
Oh, absolutely. Final point, that town hall that he was referencing, that was an event that Fox tried to pretend had independent female voters from Georgia. False. It was an astroturfed event that was led by the Georgia Federation of Republican Women, a far right-wing MAGA group. It was just that group that was there, plus some other female MAGA groups that were there. That was never disclosed, and Fox would edit out during the questions. When the questioners would say, "Oh, I love you. We've been a longtime supporter," they would edit that out, and they presented this as a town hall of just everyday women from Georgia
on the fence.
So on the fence. So and even the Georgia Federation of Republican Women, when they were called out by groups like MeidasTouch and others, they then edited their Facebook post to say, super excited we have the opportunity to attend. It previously said, super excited that we got to organize this event with Fox. Also, all of the questioners were plants as well. Like, this is Lisa Cawley, president of the Fulton County MAGA Republican group, who was asking a question. Matthew Gertz pointed that one out there. She is, you see her asking the question. That's her profile shot on the MAGA website. So, Michael Popok, I wanted to go through all of that. Those are the Fox scams. And this is the one point. When the Supreme Court does things, though, like you have absolute immunity and the laws don't apply, to me, it has a cascading effect where it's like, well, then does anything matter? Do federal election laws matter? The message to Trump and Fox is, you can get away with anything, and it's a free for all right now. Sorry for that long.
No. That's our show. And I'll be long winded on something else during the course of the podcast. Let me unpack a few of those things that I found interesting and provide some color around them. First of all, I totally agree with you. Pick up your last point. Tone from the top is very important, and the tone from the top of the United States, is giving license to Donald Trump and those around him, and Fox News, who should know better after paying almost $1 billion in defamation damages to Dominion Voting Systems, and still on the hook in some other cases that we'll be reporting on during the course of the year that against them. The license, the permission, the ripping up of the social contract, the ripping up of election law, is because of the Chief Justice John Roberts Supreme Court. We look to the Supreme Court to tell us how to act and behave and what is criminal and what is not. And we have an emboldened Donald Trump who it will be his undoing, and it has been his undoing, because the lesson that he learned from the United States Supreme Court was not a nuanced one. It was, I can do any effing thing I want, especially during this campaign, and no one can stop me. And so that's in that mind. And we'll talk a little bit later about what we're watching with the incredibly shrinking and fatigued and gassed Donald Trump, who cannot keep up with the high motor and the flawless campaign strategy of one Kamala Harris. I mean, the split screen between the two to the American people in the waning days of this campaign, as we're making a closing argument, as Kamala is making a closing argument to earn their votes. One side is earning the votes of Americans. on the ground in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia. The other one is literally barely phoning it in hand-picked environments with ringers in the audience or ringers on the interview bench or couch at Fox News, constantly canceling interviews where he's trying to match Kamala Harris, but he can't physically and mentally, emotionally, or otherwise. I don't know quite what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, as that bullet whizzed by his head, other than the person who died behind him. But ever since then, we've watched if we did a graph, it would just be completely down in terms of his mental capacity and his ability to perform and energy level, because something did happen. If it did happen, and every decision that he's made ever since has been terrible decision making. From the first decision from Butler, Pennsylvania, J.D. Vance selection, the next decision to get into bed, no pun intended, with RFK Jr. How's that going? The third major decision was 26 minutes into the debate, which he did not prepare for, against Kamala Harris. He starts talking about they're eating your pets. That's all he had at the 26-minute mark. The next major decision is he decides, because Stephen Miller or others hand him the palm card, the cheat sheet, the constitutional law for dummy fascists, and he reads from it and says, Alien Enemies Act, we're under attack by 11 million illegal immigrants, and I'm going to use the U.S. military against the U.S. population in violation of laws I never thought I'd have to say out loud since I left law school, like the Posse Comitatus Act from like the Restoration period, in our Reconstruction period in our history after the Civil War. This is what we're, and then when he has no advisors around him, Susie Wiles and La Savita, his alleged putative campaign managers. He's his own campaign manager. Nobody can control him. And so they're like, maybe you don't want to keep saying enemies from within and pointing out Americans. All he's talking about is setting up Trump concentration camps and using the military against Americans. Taking everything we talk about on this show is about his conduct and behavior towards other Americans. We're not just Democrats. We're not just independents. We are American citizens. And we're watching a guy who's running for presidency, to be restored to the presidency, that wants to attack other Americans and people here under legal immigration status. So then you have the fake, the gaslighting that we like to talk about on this show. He's saying CBS should lose its license and be everybody there should go to jail because they edited some of Kamala Harris's interview on 60 Minutes. Well, 60 Minutes that he was too exhausted to attend. First time in 50 years a person running for the presidency didn't do the 60 Minutes interview, while he's canceling all the other interviews because he's exhausted. And then what happens with him? Brett Baer, he's basically fed the questions in advance when he does an interview with Fox News on that couch. He admits that at the Al Smith dinner that he's getting jokes written for him by, let me guess, we could all guess which anchors over at Fox he's getting jokes from. And then let's put Fox in jail. Fox sets up, as you said, a phony town hall. First of all, it was a little chilling to begin with. We need an all-women town hall with Donald Trump. Lock the door. I mean, I don't know why that is even appropriate in 2024 to stick all women in a room with Donald Trump, given his history. And then it turns out that it's mainly plants that are there, brought in on buses by the Republican Party to ask him friendly softball questions. Then you fast forward to this week with the Al Smith dinner in New York, this white tie event that Kamala wisely, as her own campaign manager, wisely thought, maybe I should just get votes in Wisconsin that day, instead of going on the dais with, and I don't know if we have a photo of it, but this grim, it was almost like a Madame Tussauds wax museum. It was like an oil painting. You've got an embarrassed Mike Bloomberg who ran for the presidency. He's bright red during the entire Al Smith dinner. He's there. You've got a grimacing Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, behind Donald Trump's left shoulder. She took $500 million off him by proving that he's a persistent fraudster for the last 10 years in his business operation. You got Maria Bartiromo, speaking of Fox, who did the interview that Brett Baer was talking about, in which Trump doubled down on enemies from within. She's wearing her white gloves because it's a white tie event. She's the only one on the entire dais. She's clapping furiously. Is this an independent journalist? She's clapping furiously for Donald Trump during it. Everybody else that was there just stared straight ahead and didn't laugh at any of the jokes, whatever these jokes were. In front of the Cardinal of New York, Dolan, he starts talking about sex abuse, cursing, calls Kamala Harris, a retard in front of, and gets no laughs, right? And then he actually says out loud, those idiots that gave me these jokes. Right. Well, the idiot that's reading it is also, we're looking at your judgment as you're running for office. And the worst moment for me on that dais, Al Smith with Melania, who I don't know how they got her to go there. She never cracked a smile. He actually took on, what do we call him now from Saturday Night Live? He's like he's the first puppy. He's Doug Emhoff, who's going to be the first man, and said, because, Emhoff has come out and said he had some problems in his marriage and that he had a relationship with somebody that worked for the family. And so Donald Trump decides it's a good idea to remind everybody about his own sexual abuse problems and saying, well, keep Doug Emhoff away from the nannies. And that thing landed like a lead balloon in the room with Melania behind him. What idiot thought it was a good idea to remind people about Donald Trump's own sexual assault history by bringing that up in a Catholic charity event? This is what we're watching, and this is, we can't have any more compelling distinction between where the two parties are at in 18 days to go than what we've just outlined here at the top of the show.
And that's why, though, you have to have surrounding what Donald Trump's doing, anti-American, anti-democracy, anti-human being, anti-decency, this vicious propaganda network of people who are committed to destroying our way of life, democracy. They don't want it. They look at Putin as their hero. They want America to be a satellite nation of Russia, and the Elon Musks and the Rupert Murdochs fancy themselves as the oligarchs where they're going to benefit from this system. They see under Biden, Harris, bottom up, middle out as a threat to them, which is ridiculous. What, you can't buy 10 G5, G6 private jets? You can only buy 3 or 4. And this way, other Americans who you share this soil with can actually live in nice homes and raise their family without the fear that they're going to be homeless. That's the threat to these billionaires. So the billionaires need to find ways to try to divide us and pit us against each other and to create culture wars so that they can get people to vote against their own interests because they're so built up in this frenzy of hate because the corporate media that these billionaires control are telling them to feel that way. And I'll give you this example as well. Elon Musk, for example, has entered the building, unfortunately, in this election in a very big way for Donald Trump. All of the stuff that the right wing was talking, it's always projection and confession. All of the things that they were saying that, oh, this is what Jack Dorsey was doing with Twitter, and how dare you do this, when that actually was not taking place. And look, every company has its flaws, and Twitter certainly had its flaws, but it was being run in a socially responsible way in the interest of shareholders with transparency, at the time. But now Elon Musk just out there using Twitter, which is now X, and using all of his resources as a vehicle to try to get Trump elected, because Elon Musk would view Donald Trump as his puppet. And Elon Musk says, now I can actually control the United States because I can control Donald Trump. So one of the things that Elon Musk has been doing is he's been pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into all of these various groups. And then the groups create subgroups with fictitious names to try to divide Americans. They'll have certain messaging that goes to the Muslim community, certain messaging that goes to the Jewish community that are just opposite kind of messages as well, to try to pit the people against each other. There'll be messages to this group or that group gun owners. And oftentimes what they're doing now, and the MeidasTouch network exposed it. Open Secrets did as well. They did a great, I want to give them a shout out too. Elon Musk funneled money to this group that created another group called Progress 2028 to make it seem like, oh, well, maybe Trump's got Project 2025, but what's more dangerous is the Progress 2028 agenda. And so they created this fake thing that doesn't exist. And then they send out these mailers and digital ads pretending to be supporters of Vice President Kamala Harris and saying, look at all the great things that she's going to do. We're so thrilled that when she gets into office, she's going to make the streets safe by taking away your guns. She's promised a mandatory gun buyback program. So just get ready to take away your guns. But don't worry, it's going to make everything better. This is what a great thing that Kamala Harris is going to do. One of the other things that she's proposed is she's going to make sure that you're paying for all of the health care of undocumented migrants. And that's going to be so great because here in America, we want to make sure that everybody gets the top health care, even if you have to wait on lines longer. We're all in this together. And they pretend that this is messaging coming from her. They know it's very controversial messaging that's out there that can make people reluctant to vote for her. It's not her messaging as all, and they're sending these mailers to people's homes to try to freak them out to not vote for her. This is going on as well, which in my opinion would be another clear violation of FEC law. You can't falsely represent endorsements of people or candidates when you're actually doing the opposite. That's called fraud.
This is Michael Popok, and we're back. And that was Legal AF. That's a show we curate every week, twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on this YouTube channel. Then you can pick it up on audio podcasts, wherever you get those. We put together the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. We do it like no other channel in the YouTube universe. In fact, find out what 50 million people a month already know, that Legal AF is the home of law and politics commentary and analysis like no other. And we have so much to do and so much to talk about that we're spreading our wings. And we formed Legal AF in collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, a new channel on YouTube you may have heard of. It's called Legal AF. You can find it at Legal AF MTN. I'm the chief curator there. I'm putting together all of the content. We're doing at least 6 videos a day, bringing over some great people from the Meidas universe, adding on some new voices you haven't heard of yet or haven't heard from yet, and me kind of anchoring it all together over on Legal AF. We've already, in just 35 days, we have over 250,000 subscribers and 12 million views of our work. Find out what you're missing. Come on over to Legal AF MTN. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF somewhere on the new channel or on MeidasTouch, I'm Michael Popok, and I'm reporting. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.